Hey, there she is. Shiran, how are you?
How are you, Al? Thank you for having me again. This is great.
Of course. I'm excited for you not only to be here and for us to continue our discussion from last time, but I understand since we've last spoke that you've figured out the future of work and have mapped it and you're going to share everything. Is that right?
So not exactly, but we do we map we mapped analytic solutions that helps to shape and improve workplace experience, and I would love to share our insights with you here today.
Well, absolutely. I mean, and just for those who have not been introduced to you yet or Cassiopeia, do you mind introducing yourself as well as what you're doing there at Cassiopeia?
Sure. I'm Shiran. I'm the CEO of Cassiopeia. My background is in product management. I led very data-driven product teams before, and very distributed teams as well. I'm here based in California. And what we do at Cassiopeia, we empower managers to lead more effective remote teams. So we provide insights about how to improve team dynamics, collaboration, work-life wellness within remote teams. So it's very relevant to the challenges that we all experience these days.
Well, it absolutely is, and yeah, I have to say that I'm shamelessly a fan of your work and the way that you show up because you have a legal background for those who don't know, and you have talked incessantly about well-being. And yeah, actually, one of my questions is defining workplace. So we'll get to that in a second, but also acknowledging the realities of business. So finding that balance between the two. So that question about workplace. Workplace is being redefined. Obviously, people are working at home. They're maybe not eager to go back to an office, certainly not their former office in the way that it was. So, how are you defining workplace? And if you want to go more broad, what was the impetus for this research?
Yeah, so I think these days, workplace is whatever your people are, right? Wherever they
Mhm.
decide to actually work from. It's defined by the people and where they choose to work. And the what we are when I'm talking about analytic tools that helps to design workplace experience is about really helping leaders to design employee experience and how we all working together and how we can improve that. So we mapped it into different sections of analytics tools. I can share a few. So there is productivity tools, there is engagement, there is collaboration, well-being, and a few others. And we also generated just two really interesting insights from just mapping all this ecosystem. So I would love to share it with you later today.
Yeah, well, let's go right into it because it might be the case where, I have a lot of examples that I have come across recently where there has been the employee experience idea has been confusing. In other words, the idea that we're going to do design thinking and they're going to create these touch points, these moments that matter, it has been, shall we say, difficult and a bit of a stretch in some cases when organizations try and do it because they don't have the requisite data. They haven't asked the questions. In other words, they don't understand what's happening within the home work office environment. So, do any of the insights that are coming out of the work that you've done shed light on the need to better understand what's going on outside of work in the home, for example?
Yeah. So what you describe is something that we see as well. When I'm talking to remote managers, they're all saying the same thing, that basically working remotely and manage people remotely is basically working with a smaller data set. So you don't have all these small data points you used to have in the office. You don't see how people engage, if they're drinking coffee with other people as well, if they having some issues. So you don't see that. And what we do at Cassiopeia, and generally the power of people analytics, is really to close that gap, to help managers and people just to get all these data points that were lost and helping them to track issues in a timely manner. So I think it's absolutely relevant, people analytics tools in general, to the challenges that we all experience these days. As you mentioned, it's really hard to get what's going on in the other side of the world, right? And definitely, I would love to just dive in, and I would say that one of the trends that we but feel free, to interrupt and to ask the questions, because I think it's really fascinating. One of the trends we see is that people analytics tools are mainly designed for HR professionals these days. But what we see gradually is that there is a new emerging category of managers analytics as well. That just analytics tools that are designed for managers and helping them to shape a better workplace experience, as we just described. And I think it's definitely fascinating. And what we also see is that, I would refer to what RJ, the head of people analytics of Uber, mentioned in one of, I think it was PAFOW's conferences, or he mentioned that people analytics really have become business analytics. More managers just really understand that it's crucial for the business to understand data and to understand their people data and use it. It's really crucial for their success. So we see more leaders these days really use more analytics and more really data to close that gap that we just mentioned. So we see more products that use analytics and people data to really empower managers. So this is a really interesting trend. So I can say that it's different in a sense that there is different user experience, because it's no longer HR, it's manager. There is different adoption in terms of product and budgets. So there is different product category that is now emerging. And what I can also share is because the manager needs are different, what we see is that the product are no longer, I would say, a separate platform like we see about people analytics platforms that are usually very robust. They are separate platforms that you need to play with the data and to find what you need. Managers don't have the time for it anymore. So basically, you see products that are naturally integrate into the manager workflow and just deliver the insights that are really relevant to him in the right time, in the right place. So you don't have really the time to start to analyze and deep dive into the data. And this is interesting because it's a different product experience. And what I can also share is that we see it as well at Cassiopeia. This is something that we hear from our users. We see what their need, and we design it according to their needs, and it's absolutely different. So what I can also share is that I think it's a lot like Shopify, I would say. So Shopify's story is that when the CEO of Shopify really launched the product, analysts approached and told them, the market or the product market that you're serving is 40K online stores, right? This was the number back then. So the e-commerce platform that you're just suggesting, this is your users, the 40K online store that are now exist. But what they haven't realized is that really that Shopify launched a product that helps hold all the new businesses. They can't really use the product that already exists because they can't really afford to use it to launch their own online store. So Shopify just allowed these new businesses to really build a new online store for them. So basically they empowered all these new users with this ability, just creating about hundreds of thousands of new stores. And I think this is what we'll see here. I see, and Al, you mentioned before about how we need to provide scalable and fast solutions. And I think part of this solution about how we approaching it should be also to come directly to managers and to just offer them to be empowered by the power of data. And this is something we see and we really can also see at Cassiopeia, but also for other products and companies out there that are starting also to take the same approach.
Well, I mean, thank you for that. And I love the comparison. And it's actually not necessarily challenging my way of thinking of the market in this industry of people analytics, calling it that, but it's actually exciting me about the possibility of what lies ahead. Because I think you're absolutely right. The barrier to entry in doing people analytics 10, 15 years ago was significantly high in terms of the financial investment, the time to actually get benefit back. And now the investments aren't as steep, and the value proposition is actually being realized much faster than has historically been the case. So that's a fantastic trend, and obviously that's one of the value propositions that you bring to the world in harnessing this data, in shedding insight, and providing managers with data. So my question to you: what data and insights are of most importance, of most value right now? Did your research shed any light on that?
Yeah. So what we can see is that there's a lot of collaboration, data about collaboration, how we can collaborate better. That also insights about how we communicate. So there is a lot of issues. We see it a lot with our customers. Also, companies that are growing very fast and doing it remotely, you can start seeing some communication problems. Things started to be ignored, and people are not on the same page, and how we can optimize our communication. So this is very crucial as well. And for companies that also hiring, I would say that insights about new employees are also very crucial.
Yeah. And so as you move forward, what do you see, or actually, let me put it this way. What would you like to see happen that's not happening currently? Because I see a lot of organizations, and I've written about this and talked about it extensively. Their people analytics initiatives have just fallen off. Like it's just not a priority because they weren't delivering the insight that they needed to deal with COVID and remote work and all that. So they've just kind of disappeared. Others have actually elevated impact. And I would say very few organizations have kind of stayed in that middle road. So again, my pointed question for those, particularly those who have fallen off or maybe have not prioritized people analytics during this situation that we're in, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I would say that this is a must. This is something we have to do as leaders. We can allow ourselves to be just to lead people and companies half blind. And I think these days, if you're not using the right data that you have, this is actually what you do. You're just walking half blind. And I think no leaders can afford themselves this kind of approach. And I think we should do it in the right way. We should think about what kind of data we need, how we can do it in a responsible way, in an ethical way, as you mentioned as well, and what are our needs as leaders inside the company, what are the actual needs that we need right now, and how we can use data to solve our problems or issues that we are currently experiencing.
And so you probably heard me talk before this session and potentially previously, and it's not me alone, but this idea that we need new management models, that we need different ways of making decisions and prioritizing. And by that very nature, by the very nature of that contention, is that we need different people in the room, the frequency in which we meet might be elevated. The information or insights that we could need to actually make informed decisions might be different. So what I'm getting at is, for you and the organizations that you see doing people strategy and analytics well, uh, what does their governance structure look like? What does their decision-making process, look like? Do you see it these more diverse governance bodies coming together? I mentioned that there are crisis management teams or crisis response teams, and many of them have been modified to these ongoing, governance bodies. Is that what you're seeing, or what else might I be missing in that?
I think for our company, we see a lot of initiatives coming bottom up, I would say. So just managers that want to use to more data and to have more visibility into their team dynamics, they're just taking action and decide they want to also use analytics tools. So I think for us, it's also, we see a lot of initiatives coming bottom up. As I mentioned, it's not just something that is very constructive and coming from management and the senior leaders about how we should use people analytics right now, and it's like long processes and how we should design it. It's also, there is some really bottom up initiative, which I think it's amazing, and I think it's also part of how we can push ourselves for success and to adopt this kind of tools more frequently and in scale. So I think, yeah, this is what I see these days.
Uh, that is so. Actually, Kai, you're making me think about quite a few things that get me excited. In that, historically, to your point, these have been very centralized initiatives that have been trickled down. Sometimes that didn't get trickled down, oftentimes actually, and thus it was this black box of analysts over there doing things for executives. And the ideal future state, correct me if I'm wrong, is that this idea of people analytics is actually delivering value to groups, teams, and individuals themselves. So what I'm hearing is that teams can go do this, or small groups can go do this to gain better insight so they can be more responsive to the needs of their workers. Is that what another way to frame it? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that insights as insights are not valuable if people are not getting value out of it and action based on the insights that we deliver. And if HR seeing some insights about certain teams, but the team management are not, don't feel they get the value out of it, or they're not taking action based on it, then there is nothing, right? I think that we're just missing the point. But if the team manager is actually deciding that, yeah, this is what I need, this is what will help me to lead people better, and we can find the product experience according to his needs, then we will have much higher chance of adoption and really providing the change that the team needs, just helping them to improve and be more successful. So definitely there is a advantage for this kind of approach. Yes.
Yeah. So help me with this. So many companies, many people analytics professionals have, in response to the crisis, we got to do surveys, and we have to find out where people are, what they're thinking, feeling, and that has been great in many cases. It's provided actionable insight. It's provided some trending over time, informed good decisions. Oftentimes, it has been absent of the activity-based data. So actually how people are spending their time in meetings, when people are corresponding via email or Slack or what have you, which shows their how much they're working and how much they might be stressed. So connecting those two dots could be hugely valuable. Is that something that you're seeing? Is that something that you would advocate for?
Yeah, definitely. I think survey is a great tool. I think it's absolutely a tool that companies should use, but also it's got a few limitations. The first one is that it's subjective, and these days a lot of people fear for their jobs. They're not necessarily will be so keen to be open and share their difficulties. And the second limitation I would say is that there is a limit on how much you can use it, right? You can't really perform surveys all the time and ask for feedback. And what we do by combining all this metric, objective data of communication patterns, we help to deliver actionable, objective, real-time, constant insights. So definitely I see there is another component or another layer, I would say, of insights that we can deliver to really make it a whole, I would say, to get a better picture, a better view of your team dynamics. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And I think it's absolutely necessary, like you were contending before. And I also like the notion that it doesn't have to be at an enterprise level. There are many, and I say this with all due compassion because a lot of people are having a really, really tough time. And my heart goes out. And, I think about us in this field having a responsibility to have those people be seen and to have a mechanism by which they can elevate their frustrations, elevate their ideas so they can actually facilitate change or inspire change, moving from this victim mentality to this creator mentality, and knowing what solutions are out there as part of being that resourceful creator. So with that in mind, what other research or what other insights rather came out of this research around mapping the future workplace?
Yeah. So what we also saw is that there is a lot of new features that were added for people analytics product, I would say, that are designed for remote work, which is very interesting. And we saw unique assessments for remote work and just assessing also the needs and new needs that it creates. We some new measurements that also are providing some kind of assessment about how company well adapted to remote work as well. So we see all these new features that were added because of these all new challenges and that we just mentioned now. So this is really interesting, and I think also what we will see in the future, and this is something that we predict that will happen, is that we also going to see more features that are designed for hybrid teamwork as well. So I think as we will see more teams that are going hybrid and will work partly from the office and partially from online, I think it's much more challenging way to really keep team culture. There is a whole new set of challenges that we need to address as leaders as well. And I predict that we will see also new features for that moving forward.
Got it. And that actually, and I know we're coming up on time and there's 20 questions that are jumping to mind, so I just got to be selective. But I really am thinking about what happened in 2008, 2009, where there was significant staff reductions. Obviously, that's happening around the world now. There was a reliance on contingent labor, yeah, and AKA gig economy. I am really curious as to how companies like Upwork are doing, where they're augmenting internal capability with resources. So my pointed question to you, when you talk about team dynamics, and historically we've talked about employees exclusively, but there might be this model, and there likely will be, where you do have consultants, contractors coming in to fill gaps, so organizations aren't carrying as much financial commitments in terms of their people spend. And again, I'm not advocating, I'm just acknowledging, what has happened historically and what I believe is happening now. So if you agree, what do you see happening with understanding team dynamics, employees working with contractors and consultants, and that becoming, potentially a new normal, even beyond what it was before?
Yeah, I what definitely I agree. I see it as well. There is more freelancers, more contractors that company choose to work with, but they also a very integral part from the team and how we make sure we are collaborating and communicating properly. And usually they're really far away, in many cases different time zones, which is also another factor we need to take into account, and how we can close these gaps, right? All these new challenges now. So there is different mentality, different time zone, also new hires, so how we are onboarding them to a team that is already exists. There's all this bunch of new challenges that we need to address as leaders. And definitely I see a lot of challenges coming through. I can share that recently there is a Harvard Business Review study that have been published that 79% of leaders don't feel confident leading remote teams. And I think what we just discussed is also, part of the reasons why they don't feel comfortable, because there is a whole bunch of new challenges. And I think people analytics or analytics in general, what I mentioned about managers analytics as well, I think there is a big part in this problem that we can help with using technology. So, yeah.
Yeah, I 100% agree. So, Guy, I'm so excited. And as we're wrapping up here, there's a lot of things that I want to ask you. So I'm gonna have to invite you back, or we're gonna have to do another podcast very soon, because I'm really excited about the work that you're doing and the way that you're approaching it. Because obviously you're thinking about individual well-being, you're thinking about team performance, as well as the performance of the organization. So certainly celebrate you and the work that you and your team are doing. How can people learn more about this research and you and Cassiopeia?
Yeah, we will publish the piece next week. So looking forward to share it with everyone. And if you would like to learn more about Cassiopeia, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, Shiran Yaroslavski, or write to me, shiran@cassiopeia.tech. We would love to share our thoughts and to tell you more about what we're doing.
All right, Shiran, as always, true pleasure, and look forward to reading that report and talking to you very soon. So you be well, yeah?
Perfect. Thank you, Al.